the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop is, and this program in general, is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. And essentially for these workshops, I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m., right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees, our guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor on Wednesday, you should reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. Now, you can have more calls with your mentor. Actually, it's highly encouraged. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations. We will send a post-program assessment, which will allow us to capture your feedback on the program, on the experience itself. And that's essentially it. That's the program for the semester. I'm really excited to begin working with you. I'm really excited to get started. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. During this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so then you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company is actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door, how can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you. So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comments sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you know, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve, and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school. And the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you are matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I really don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here and we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career, or what you can accomplish as a person, and in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful, and that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system, and that, you know, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, I mean, my vulnerability, but 2, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, you're going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 7% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening, and I promise you it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. Welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to talk about how we can work on getting our foot in the door for professional opportunities. I know we're in this really crazy time period of COVID where we might be thinking to ourselves like, I've got to do everything remote or virtually, and I don't know if I can properly get my foot in the door. That's something that we're all facing right now, that all students are facing and going through right now. And we're here to talk about that. We've got an incredible guest with us here this evening. We've got Pete Dunbar. Pete is an executive. He's been in banking for over 30 years. He's founded Bristol Bank, which he eventually sold in 2006, and he's now the Senior Vice President for Key Private Bank. Pete, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Garrett. I'm glad to join, and hopefully I'll be able to provide some guidance and help for the students.
Yeah, of course. And I know you've been in banking for pretty much your whole career, but you had multiple transitions, both from founding a bank to working your way up to being an executive in a bank. I guess I'd love to learn, how did you garner your career trajectory? How did you get your foot in the door with all the different opportunities within banking that you were able to acquire?
Well, that's a loaded question. So I'll start at the beginning, and that is when I was in school. I decided, partly on my own and partly with a push from a few other folks, I decided to get involved with different constituencies on campus. And I focused on things that I was already interested in, things that I thought would be fun, would I would meet interesting people, but the work itself would actually lead to something that I would be happy about the outcomes. And so those were many and varied, but that culminated with a senior leadership position with a campus organization, and through my fellow students as well as our advisors and leaders in that organization, I was able to network extensively, and quite frankly, that's how I received my first job offer. It wasn't through the traditional interviewing, it was actually through the connections and the networking that I'd done during my undergraduate days.
I love that story. That's so insightful. I think that as a lot of students, we think to ourselves like, okay, cool, we got to go to the career service office. We got to go through all the normal traditional channels for getting our foot in the door for opportunities. But it sounds like you were able to leverage your network to help you get your foot in the door. And it just was like the relationships you were able to build, were the introductions that other people were able to make for you, helped you get to where you wanted to be. Is that the case?
It is, but I'd like to add two things to that. One is, and this is not to be overlooked, the organizations that I got involved with, nobody forced me to do it. And I sought out organizations and their mission and their activities that I would really like to do and that I'd be happy with. And by being involved with those organizations, it was a natural networking opportunity. It wasn't forced. That's number one. Number two, I've been a campus recruiter. I've gone to those career placement service offices, and I know the pressure that is placed on, can I get the interview? Can I get on the schedule? Did I have the right GPA? Did I take the right classes? And then you finally get on the schedule and you're so excited. To me, it places undue pressure on a very short conversation. And I would recommend to anyone listening, what you are is not a 25-minute conversation with a campus recruiter. What you are is so much more. And find ways to build rapport with others in that company, whether it's people that you knew that graduated 2 or 3 years before, or somebody that's in your same city. There's just so many ways that you can do it, that when you enter that conversation, that somewhat forced conversation, and you enter it with more confidence, with more context, and it doesn't put so much pressure on that conversation that you have during the interview.
I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of students face that pressure, that feeling. They build it up to this big thing of, oh my gosh, I finally got the interview. I'm in the slot. I'm gonna have a 20-minute conversation, and it's so easy to feel like you blew it, or you didn't talk about this or that. I mean, there's so many things, and it's so subjective, because that recruiter, that person who's on campus for that day, you don't know what kind of day they're having. They could be having a totally horrible day. Their dog could have died. They could have just broken up with their significant other. Like, if they're having a bad day, it doesn't really matter who they're interviewing on that day. It's probably not going to stick, because they're pissed off in their own world, and that's got nothing to do with you. So I think the point you bring up of expanding your network, giving you multiple shots on goal, I guess, to use a soccer reference.
I like it.
To get your foot in the door is going to be much more likely to actually secure you that position, because I believe the statistic is that 70% of all jobs go to people who know somebody at that company. And with the fact that everybody's virtual right now anyways, we've got LinkedIn, we've got virtual resources to essentially help ourselves put ourselves out there to have virtual conversations with anybody across the world. So It seems like there's nothing stopping you except for yourself and just putting yourself out there to reach out.
Yeah.
Pete, I love to ask the question, because I think this might be on the mind of a lot of students. I would imagine a lot of students might be thinking to themselves when they hear this, like, well, what do I have to offer? I'm just a student. You know, I'm 20, 21, 22 years old, or I'm inexperienced in my career. Like, what do I have to offer? Why would someone have a conversation with me? I guess, Pete, could you elaborate? Do professionals like to help college students?
Yes. I'll elaborate, though, too. What every person brings to that conversation is every experience they've had up until that day. And so think about a conversation in your life continuum of all the things that I've done which make me valuable to a company, maybe to this company, to this specific position going forward. And I use this example often. I once sat down with a person who the only reason they were on the interview schedule is because I twisted the arm of all of my colleagues and said, this person is on the schedule. And the first get to know you conversation wasn't the typical conversation. And somehow I knew it wouldn't be. It wasn't, you know, I'm so-and-so and I'm a this major and I'm a that major and this is my GPA and blah. I mean, it was, you know, I grew up in rural Arkansas, and my parents unfortunately split when I was young, and I spent 6 months with one parent, 6 months with the other, and I went to 7 different schools from the time I was in the first grade to senior in high school. I chose Indiana University because I felt like it was going to allow me to take all of these experiences, these challenges, some of them bad, and be able to put them to good use here, and somebody here would understand that and let me be in this room today. I said in my mind, you can stop talking right now. I'm going to give you a job offer. That's all we talked about. We talked about all those experiences that young woman had had up until that date. And she kind of went on and apologized why she didn't have an internship. And I told her she didn't have to. I said, it's understood. You're working in the summer. You're putting yourself through school. You come from a home where you probably didn't get a lot of direction about going to college and starting a career. I mean, she had me like hello, if you will, right? To quote that movie, because I had a feeling that's who this person was, and she delivered on the spot. And by the way, I was with another financial institution. We did hire her. She now is on the staff of the chief investment officer of one of the largest investment firms on the planet.
That's incredible. I love that story. I think it's really powerful. I think for any students who are watching this right now, rewind by another 60 seconds, re-listen to the story, because I think it really should stick and really should resonate. People want to hire people that they can just enjoy being around. It's not all about your credentials and accolades. Don't get me wrong. Especially if you're an engineering student, I mean, yeah, people are going to look at a lot of your hard skills, but those engineers that have the soft skills to set themselves apart, or those business students that have had experiences where they've maybe faced adversity or done things that were differently, that's what's going to stick out, because people are inherently attracted to those that are interesting. Like, at the end of the day, like, I am more attracted to more conversations with another person that I just find genuinely interesting, because they seem to have an interesting background. If everyone seems the same and there's one person that's different, that person who's different is going to be a whole lot more interesting to me than a person who seems like they're just in line with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes me think of a similar story. It's actually of my best friend's mom. She was an art history major at Stanford, and when she was at her career services office in the 80s, Chase Bank had come to the campus to do their interviews, and essentially the student that was supposed to be the MBA student that was supposed to be taking on this interview just was a no-call, no-show. And she just happened to be in the career service office on that day, and they were like, Judy, you just go into this interview, just do your best, you just don't waste this person's time. We can't have this person come here and not have an interview slot taken up. And she said, okay, sure. And now she's a vice president for Chase. And she got the job, and she was an art history major. So she was not necessarily in line to be the ideal candidate for the role from a credentials perspective, but she impressed them in the interview, and she's obviously done amazing things ever since then. So
and let me finish up with this section here and this concept with is nobody hires a resume. So you shouldn't have to repeat your resume when you go into a conversation. People hire people, and the resume, it's impossible for a resume to show who any person is. So spend that time during that conversation having a discovery around who the person you're talking to is and who you are. That will lead to the best decision for you. Is this the right place for me to go work? And for the person that's going to have to make that selection decision, are you the right person? Am I hiring a person, not a resume?
That's a great point. I think that's awesome. So I think it's very clear. One, show some personality, show more about yourself, share the times that perhaps might be vulnerable to you, or things that maybe you've gone through that were difficult, because that shows character. It shows a lot about who you are. And that's awesome. But back onto the getting your foot in the door for opportunities, I would love to ask you, Pete, is there a right way to go about doing it, and is there a wrong way to go about doing it? I think it's very clear. Perhaps we need to be a little more persistent. We have to find multiple avenues for getting our foot in the door beyond just what everyone else is doing. We have to think outside the box. But is there a right way and is there a wrong way about getting our foot in the door?
The right way is initiate a connection because you want to get to know the person, not because you're immediately trying to ask that person for something. And I've started what are now years-long relationships with younger people, and it started on the wrong path. And some people will not stop you. They'll just let you go down the wrong path. You'll end that conversation, that connection, and it's done. I'm a little different. I actually will stop somebody and say, okay, time out. If you're calling me to access my Rolodex, it's not going to happen. I need to understand who you are. I need to understand what you like to do. You know, at the end of the day, when you say, I'm done for the day, what made you happy? What are the activities that you participated in that you say, I can't wait to do again tomorrow? Once somebody understands that about you, the rest is natural. They'll immediately think about, oh, I know so-and-so, and they have that same interest, or they like to do that same thing, or they once told me that that's how they got their current role because they demonstrated a high degree of competence in that. Well, you get competence because it's something you like to do. Things you like to do, you naturally do more of. Things you naturally do more of, you get better at. And you get better at those things a lot faster than you get better at the things that don't come naturally and that necessarily don't give you a sense of happiness when you've completed the task. And so start a conversation on that basis to let somebody get to know who you are. I've been fortunate in my life, and I've been able to count, on one hand, some very material mentors who, when I was going down the wrong path, stopped me. And those conversations, though not easy at first, have been the ones that resonate the most with me. The ones that said, that person cared enough about me as a person to say, hey, let's stop you before you get yourself in trouble. Let's stop you before you pursue a job or a career or a company that ultimately may not be helpful to you. And by the way, I've worked for companies that have been just the opposite. They really tried to force you to go into things that you didn't think were right for you. And that's that second important time when you have to have somebody you really trust within or outside of the organization to talk about that intently and personally and get advice. I tell everyone, gathering advice is important, but when you get down to the one person that you're going to take advice from, it's really important that you listen and that if you say, I'm going to take your advice, that you do it, because, taking a lot of somebody's time and effort and emotion, and then saying, gosh, Pete, that's great advice. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I followed 6 months later and I found out they went that direction versus what we agreed on this direction. I lose confidence in that person. I lose confidence in my ability to be impactful in their future lives. And, that's something that, especially somebody who's energized to help, you don't want to put them in that side of the ledger.
I think that's a really good point. I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question right now real quick. I guess the question is, what do you really enjoy to do? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. And by the way, when I'm asking a question, I'm not saying like, oh, I want to be an accountant or I want to be a mechanical engineer. I guess really what I'm asking is what within the work, kind of following what Pete's talking about, what within the work do you like doing? Do you like interacting with people? Do you like solving problems? What about the work do you really enjoy? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it because I think that can allow us some versatility. I think so often we get tunnel vision about what we think we have to do based on things that we like to do. But reality is we can do so many different things that allow us to do that thing that we really enjoy doing. But it can be outside of maybe that scope of what we thought that an ideal career might be. What are your thoughts on that, Pete?
Something immediately came to mind as you were posing the question, and it's something that I do a lot of discovery around to see if it doesn't naturally come out of a person, I do discovery to see if I can get it out. And that's what I call intellectual curiosity. And I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's like something else, They say, what's a camel? I don't know, but when I see it, I'm going to know it. So I would say that the best way I can demonstrate it is somebody gives you a project to do, and it's, go research this. And there's a natural ending point, and you do the research, and you come back, and you complete your report. And while doing discovery, you found very natural avenues to say, oh, well, that's an interesting point of discovery. Maybe I should go and look at that, and maybe I can find some additional things which might be additive to my work product that weren't necessarily 100% in the scope, but man, if I could find something that's really cool, it could help the final project. And then that might lead to another question. Or when you're having a conversation with an individual and you ask them a really good question, and they give you a really good answer, don't move on to a completely unrelated question. Say, that was really cool. Have you ever thought about this? Or I once, did some research on this. That demonstrates that you have a true interest, and that it's not at answering the question, it's about getting to a larger set of answers and facts. We've all been told that college today is not about rote memory, and it's not about, vocational skills. It's about taking all this thing and all these things and being able to apply it into the world, into the workplace, to make better judgments and decisions. Well, there's no way to demonstrate that you want to do that by doing, there's no way better to do it than demonstrate intellectual curiosity.
That, I think, makes a ton of sense. That's a huge, huge point, is that when you are genuinely curious into a topic, you will ask questions naturally. Your desire to learn more comes naturally. It's not about doing just enough to get the A on the assignment or to pass the project or, just check off that you completed the task. It's to a point that you, not just become obsessive, but you're genuinely thinking about this after work. You almost get in a flow when you're working on it, because you are just losing track of time, because you're just so focused on the thing itself, because it genuinely interests you. You're genuinely curious about how this can change or alter over time based on enhancements and other changes that you can add to it. And I mean, that's the key to innovation, really.
Well, I'm thinking about some other questions that you've posed to me in advance, and there's a couple things that I wanted to address. You said, are there right or wrong ways of getting your foot in the door? And again, trying to allow the students to avoid some potholes. As I said before, don't connect with somebody just to get access to the Rolodex. That's apparent very quickly and will lead you nowhere. The other thing is I think to try to rely too much on someone else's influence over that person. So I got connected to you through, my uncle, and, he says you're a great guy, and I know you've worked with him, and because of that, you should hire me. No, it has to be, use that as an opportunity to gain the introduction, and then make it very clear it's all about you and your value to the company, to the opportunity, to the situation. Don't overplay that hand, because it places undue pressure on all involved. let's put it that way. The final thing here is that somebody asked about LinkedIn, and I would say that LinkedIn is a great tool. I've been using it very effectively but I use it differently at different times of my life on what's going on. And so to me, that's a tactical way to use LinkedIn, not a long-term strategic way. And some of the tactical things you should think about are, number one, do I use the free service or do I use the paid service? Well, I've used them both. And I use the paid service during times when I have intent need to do something specific. Example, in my current role, I was informed in March of this year that a senior person on my team was going to retire. And this is a critical role on my team. It's a person that's been on the team for over 20 years. Someone that's developed relationships and skills and experience and knowledge that I don't have. I've been here 8 years. And so I knew it was going to be a very important role to begin to develop that talent inventory round. So first thing I did, I went into LinkedIn. I signed up for, just the monthly, paid service. Now I get access to more information, more searches, more connections. Okay. I did that for 6 months. I had 15 people I thought that I should start communicating with and talking with to see if they'd be right. I turned off the paid service. Okay, so that to me is a very tactical way to use LinkedIn. Number two, don't let anybody and just anybody into your network. Remember that the value of LinkedIn is that others can automatically see who you're connected to. Well, you don't want to inadvertently let somebody into that group that's going to use your connections in a way that you never intended them to use it. Possibly a competitor. They might, see all of your connections. Oh, well, Pete knows them. They're in that industry. I'm gonna call them and say, yeah, I called you because you know Pete Dunbar and we're all LinkedIn together. Without your knowledge, you have no idea that they did that. So, people ask me for connections. I get probably 50 connection requests a month, and I probably let 5 people in. And I just have a standard little thing. I cut and pasted from my desktop, and it says, I have a long-standing practice of not connecting with competitors and or recruiters on LinkedIn. If there's any reason for us to talk directly, please call me at this number. Have a great day. I've made better connections by doing that than I have from letting some people in that maybe necessarily I didn't know. And if somebody you don't know asks you for a connection, immediately respond and say, why do you want to connect with me? Tell me. Come on, make it apparent. Let's talk about how we can grow ourselves. Let's talk about how we can grow our businesses. It's not social media. It shouldn't be thought of that way. The final thing with LinkedIn, it can be an immensely powerful tool for you to show others that you want them to connect with people in your network that have been vital to your success, and you think they can be vital to that person's success. And I once or twice a month, I'll take half a day and I'll think about that, and I'll send out just one LinkedIn message. Say, Garrett, you're a great guy. I really enjoy working with you and your company. I would like to connect you directly with this person. And here's why. I want you guys to go and talk and see if this would be a helpful connection. And if it is, let me know. I'd be interested to see if I'm on point or not. Have a great day. Bye. And if you do that just once or twice a month, the people on both of the receiving ends of that will know you're serious, and that you're serious about using your network, about wanting to have success for more people than just yourself.
That's, I think, really multiple really powerful points. So one, to start, just what's the right and wrong way? Don't be transactional when it comes to leveraging LinkedIn or meeting with someone you met for the first time. I sometimes get this from students where they say something along the lines of like, hey, do you know of any internships? Like, can you connect me with any internships or any jobs? And it's like, hey, we've never even talked. I don't even know who you are. And some students' logic to that is, well, how am I supposed to get an internship or a job? Like, I don't have all the time in the world. Like, it's easier for me just to spray and just spray and just like, put it out there to everybody to see if they've got an internship for me than have conversations with people, because if I have a conversation with one person, that could take 30 minutes and that 30 minutes could lead to nothing. And it's like, well, what is the likelihood that you're going to get a real legitimate internship from spraying and praying? The likelihood is not. It's like, if you actually do, it's probably from a turnover office. We're like, hey, we're looking for any warm body. Just put them in there. Like, if you're looking for an internship, we got you. Just come on in. We'll churn you out in 2 months or whatever, and you're probably not going to enjoy it. But if you're actually serious about it, building these conversations is so critical. Which leads to another big point that you brought up, which was leveraging LinkedIn and how you can really make the most out of it. I'm a big fan of, when someone connects with me, I always send them a voice message that says, hey, Jane Doe, thanks so much for connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'm curious, how did you hear about me? And is there anything I can do to help with anything you're working on? And what I'm surprised, sadly, is that very few people respond to that. I'm like, it's a voice message. It's about as personalized as it gets. It's like, I don't want to send a just generic text. On LinkedIn, you can send voice messages, and I think that's a really powerful tool. It lets them know that this isn't just some generic message you're spraying out there. You're sending them a voice message that's personalized to them. So I think that's really critical. And then to the third point is, you can leverage LinkedIn both to the paid service as well as the free service. I'm a big fan of reaching out to people who are in the positions that you would aspire to be. But when you have conversations, when you have those informational interviews with them, it's not about you getting a job. It's back to your point, Pete, about being genuinely curious. I would love to learn, what does your job look like? What are the things that you normally do on the job? Don't even bring up the idea of job postings or internships or anything like that, because you're still trying to figure out if this is the type of work you'd like to be doing. What do you think about that, Pete?
Agree. 100%. The other thing that came to mind is, as you were clarifying some of those points, is the power of your voice. And our brain works in a lot of different ways. But if someone can match up a profile on LinkedIn, maybe you have a photograph, which I would highly recommend that you have a professional photograph. underscore professional photograph on LinkedIn, and you follow that up with your voice, a kind message, a thank you, a question, you will immediately have connected now all the senses for you. They've read it, so they've got a cognitive, they've seen your picture, they heard your voice. That can lead to a sense of connection that you won't get any other way, especially in this environment we're in where we have to do a lot of things remotely. And I'm not a big fan. I've gotten to be better at it than I certainly was 9 months ago, but you can still use all of these things to your advantage so that you get the outcome that you're looking for from that touch point and from that connection.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, one thing you brought up was this idea of introductions and how we can most effectively leverage them. I think sometimes what I'll observe is perhaps a student will say to me something along the lines of like, well, hey, if you know of any engineers or engineering companies or any investment banks, or if you know of any marketing firms that are looking for an intern or things like that, let me know. And more likely than not, off the top of my head, that person's not going to just magically appear. What are your thoughts on leveraging something like LinkedIn to go through their profile and say, you know what, I noticed you're connected with Jane Doe. She is the chief marketing officer for this marketing agency. I would love to connect with her. I'm not necessarily looking for a job or internship per se, but I'd love to learn about her work. Would you be open to introducing me? That I appreciate that, because then, you know, it makes me realize like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about Jane Doe. She'd be a perfect person. Be happy to make the intro. What are your thoughts about asking for the introduction to the specific person?
Well, first of all, I think the word introduction is extremely important. Once you're in business, especially internally, we oftentimes use the word referral. Referrals and introductions are not to be confused. They are completely different. Introductions are much more powerful and important than referrals because they're voluntary. They're voluntary on everyone involved. They're voluntary on the person calling me or connecting with me and saying, hey, I see that you know Garrett. Is there any way that you could introduce me to Garrett? I'm fascinated by the work that he does. I don't know where it's going to lead to, but it might be more impactful if you would make the introduction for me. I'd say, sure. I'm happy to do that. Now, I'm very experienced at this. I do this a lot. It becomes natural to me. And if it was somebody that I know as well as Garrett, I'd call him on the phone. But if it's somebody maybe it was a little bit more remote, I'd send them a note, maybe a handwritten note, maybe an email. And so what I encourage you to do, if somebody goes, well, I don't know about making that introduction, and I ask them, you know, do you do this routinely? Maybe I can send you an email and tell you how I think the introduction would be best made. And I have to do that still at this day and age. I still have to do that quite a bit. I want to be introduced to somebody, and I'm not getting the result I want. So I'll say, you know what? I'm gonna send you an email. You can cut and paste this email word for word if you want. But if you would just send me this, if you would just send this email to Garrett, I think he'd be inclined to take my phone call. And it's that simple. It's like, you know, I would send the email and say, hey, Garrett, it's Pete Dunbar. Hope you're well. We haven't seen each other in a while, and hope everything with your business is going as you'd like it. Hey, I'd like you to do me a favor. I'd like you to take a phone call from this student because I've gotten to know them a little bit, and they're very curious about what you're doing, and I think that there could be some real value for both of you to talk to each other. So as a favor to me, please take their phone call. Thank you very much, Pete. That's it. No obligation, no demands, no stress on a relationship that you may or may not have. It's just, hey, as a favor, can you take a phone call? And I've rarely not heard this being successful. And quite frankly, I completely stole that from a very successful businessman in central Indiana who once said, if somebody won't call you back, call me and I will tell them to call you back. And I'm not a person that uses that technique, but that's how I kind of developed this idea of, hey, just take the call. And so much can happen from that first call. It's opened tons of doors for me. It's started business relationships. It's started professional relationships. So really, I would say don't confuse introductions and referrals. Referrals will come once you're in business. You'll do referrals within your company or within affiliated companies. Introductions, conversations, relationship building is what you're seeking now.
I love that. Let me take a moment to ask the students a question real quick. Based on what we've discussed, what is something you can start doing today to start getting your foot in the door for professional opportunities, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it be via email, whether it be via phone call, whether it be a handwritten letter? What is something you can start doing today to start expanding your network, to start getting you connected with the people that you would like to be chatting with? Post in the comment section. I love to learn about that. Pete, one thing that I see consistently from students is, and not only consistently all the time, but it definitely happens, is things change. Interests change. Sometimes they think that they want to be a doctor, and then all of a sudden, they're like, ooh, I don't know if I like blood. I think I'm going to want to switch to a different career path. How can students properly broach that conversation with a mentor or with a professional that they've had a really strong relationship with without seeming like they're flaky? Because ultimately, they want to make themselves seem as consistent and strong as possible to their professional, but also let them know, like, my interest changed. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I think I'm more interested in finance. How can a student go about making that conversation happen?
Wow, man, there's two. I kind of view in general two paths that you got to that moment in your life. And I'll talk about a couple of them that I think could resonate well. One was when I was a student, and I was meeting with my advisor at the business school at the end of the summer, right before my junior year, and he said something to me, and he says, "So, man, you really got your heart set on being an accountant." I go, "Yeah, it's my career path. I want to be an accountant, and then I want to go to law school, and I really maybe might want to do tax law, and I don't know, but that's really where I got my heart set on it." And he very difficultly, with a little bit of apprehension, said, "Have you taken a look at your accounting grades? They're not terrific. Let's look at other opportunities of the skills that you've demonstrated, the classes you've done well in, that might be other career paths that, to start, might get you on your long-term path." So, that was somebody who I trusted, who I built a relationship that came to me and enabled me to broaden my horizons, to think differently, to get off this kind of myopic path that I was on. Okay, so that's one situation. The other, it's going to come from within you, and it's going to be, I want to make a change. And that can be for all kinds of reasons. And please, please, please never be apprehensive about talking about all the reasons why you want to make a change, because the person you're talking to can't make a really good decision and can't advise you unless they fully understand. It might be you're coming from a situation where you're not performing well in your current role, and you've analyzed it, and it's not because you're lazy or you don't have the tools to do it. There's something there's not a general connection to the work. There's an intellectual gap that you can't do the work. So it's okay saying, I'm not performing well, and I think here's why, and this is why I think I'd perform better in a different type of role. You can't pull the wool over somebody's eyes when it comes to performance, whether you're within a company or if you're outside. I mean, the first thing I'm going to do if somebody comes to me, and I say, "Well, why are you leaving?" and they give me reasons, I'm going to find out, hey, are they doing well? Are they a superstar? Are they not? Why? So, so don't try to gloss over a performance gap. It has to be honest. It has to be an honest conversation. Second part is, there's going to be personal reasons why you want to professionally make a change. Never be apprehensive about talking about those personal reasons. It's difficult sometimes, but people change. People change every day in their lives. their other relationships outside of work change, and that leads them to think new things, to have new ideas. It's okay, but don't, again, try to not be personal about this, because if you're changing companies, changing careers, maybe deciding to go back to school if you've been in the workplace, be open as to all the reasons how you've come to that point, and honestly ask for assistance in help making that next step.
Yeah, that's great insight, Pete. I love it. So I'd love to ask students one last question. What is the skill you believe you are strongest at? Post in the comment section. Just based on whatever years of experience you've gotten up to this point in time in life, what is the skill that you just believe you are strongest at? Not necessarily that you like the most. It can be the skill that you like the most, but what is the skill that you believe you are strongest at? Post in the comment section. We'd love to learn about it. Pete, this has been an awesome lunch and learn. I feel like your insight to these students has been incredible. I think that they've really learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot just about the idea of what is the right way to get our foot in the door, what is the wrong way to get our foot in the door. I loved what you had to say about being genuinely curious and just being constantly curious about a certain topic, to the point that you're not just doing it to check off a box, but you're actually doing it because you have genuine curiosity about how this works and how we can be better. Thanks for sharing that, Pete. I guess last thing for you is, I know a lot of our students are on LinkedIn. How can our students get in touch with you? How can they connect with you if they got any questions, or follow up with you if they got anything they may want to touch base on? Are you all right if they connect with you on LinkedIn?
Sure. And the best way to do that is send me a connection request. I'm going to give you one more or two more LinkedIn tips. Never, and I mean capital letters, bold type, underscore, never request a LinkedIn connection from the mobile app. You have to do it from your desktop, because only from the desktop can you include a personalized message. I'm going to pause there for a second so everyone wrote that down. Okay? Please, in your notes, never all capital, bold, underscore. Okay? And in that personal message, say to me, there's something that you said that resonated really well in that lunch and learn. It was this. I would like to speak to you to learn more about that, how to get better at that, how to learn more about that, how you got to the point in your life and career to be able to understand that. You'll always get a response from me. You'll always get a connection, acceptance, and that will begin a dialogue that I think will take both of us to a level of connection and relationship that will determine what's the best way to help each other. And I'll close with this. Whatever it is, whether you're in school, whether you're working part-time, whether you're doing a summer internship, there is no substitute for hard work. And I went to Indiana University. There could be some Indiana University students out there. And for those of you, I will just say that I talk to professionals that hire students from all over the country every day. And whether it's investment banking, wealth management, accounting, real estate analysis, whatever it might be. And I routinely hear, I love hiring kids from IU, because they know how to do the work. And so please, wherever you are, whatever your school you're in, figure out a way to demonstrate that you have the intestinal fortitude and the capability to do the work. Because at the end of the day, there is no substitute for doing that. Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed this lunch and learn.
Awesome. Pete, thanks so much for sharing that. This was great. I think the students really enjoyed what you had to say. Awesome. Well, this was great. Pete, thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. See you, everybody.